Hello, Keisha.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. And you?
I'm doing great. Just came back from a trip, tired, but always ready.
Nice. Thanks for coming to Afroplug. Thanks for the interview. So I
A
think
pleasure
a
is
lot
mine.
of I think a lot of our audience know who you are, but please can you also just introduce yourself to our audience? Explain what a legend you are, please.
Lord Legend. All right, so I'm three times Cora Award winner, uh, MTV Europe Award nominated, African and more focusedly representing DRC and Portugal, but I lived all around the world, so I don't really have a nationality. I lived between, I was born in Kinshasa, but I lived in Kinshasa, Ivory Coast, Abidjan, Brussels, Waterloo, New York, mm, Pointe-à-Pitre, Fort-de-France, Cayenne. And currently, I'm residing in Lisbon. I am a producer, executive producer, writer, composer, uh, sound engineer as well in my times. I also directed 20 videos, released, launched and released probably between 2003 and 2010. Um, I would say music that redefined Kizomba, Zouk, and Kompa, to say the less. I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well,
So
I do my
how
thing.
did you yes. How did you get started in music?
When I was a kid, I really was always using forks and knives to do rhythms. And by the time I was 8, my mother bought me a very small synthesizer where I could just do monophonic notes. And I got obsessed with a, a show that was called Supercopter. That was like one of these 80s series, and I was obsessed with the theme of the show. So I kept trying to replay it with my little synthesizer, and it started like that. And then I could not do two notes at the same time, so that's when I discovered that there was monophonic, polyphonic. So that's then the next Christmas I asked my mom for something a little bigger, and then I had something that I could play 8 notes at the same time. So that's when I discovered chords. So I started
Mhm.
doing chords, and I started doing the same track all the time. But then I was asking myself, I need to put a bass in there. How come I cannot put a bass and at the same time play the piano? How come I cannot play the bass and at the same time play a rhythm? And that's when
Mhm.
I start really like digging into the music magazines, and I realized that there was a there was a sequencer synthesizer. So that's when I really was. So by the time I got like 13, 14, um, my mom told me that if I was good at school in my birthday, I could get like something a little elaborate. She had no clue what I was asking for, but she was telling me, listen, there was this synthesizer called Yamaha V50, and this one had a sequencer, a drum machine. Uh, you could you can create your own sound. You could use like it had a whole library of 1,000 sounds. Plus, you could create your own sounds and edit the sounds. And I think by the time I got 14, I got it, and it was like huge. It was a huge synth at that time with a screen and all the bells and whistle. And that's when I started really like not only creating sounds,
Mhm.
because I really had in my head. I would hear a sound, but I was like, no, that's not how I want it to sound. So I would enter and start working on EFM synthesis and really like and PCM synthesis and trying to really like tweak the sounds. So in the beginning, I would tweak sounds and create my own basses, my own synths. Then I really start from zero. And by the time I was 15, I was really creating bass sounds and synth sounds and creating the same song. I've been creating the same song since I was 9. I was doing the same song, but every time I had a new machine, I would
Mhm.
add stuff to the same song. So it was a simple song with simple chords, but then I had the song with a bass, then I had the song with some rhythms, then I started, adding some. So I think my first track was probably deep house pop-ish stuff because that's what I was listening to growing up in Paris. I was listening to a lot of European pop like Def Leppard, Duran Duran, Pet Shop Boys. So I really was trying to do that sound, but at the same time, I was adding a little bit of that Congo flavor in it. And by the time I got 16, 17, I really was understanding that I needed a sampler. And so at
Mhm.
that time, it was, well, I started really going out of house music and pop and more into hip hop and R&B. And I understood clearly that I needed either a SP 1200 or Akai S950, so I could sample stuff. My parents are very big audiophiles. So my dad built a whole club in his house in Kinshasa. Uh, I think there's a club in Paris called the Cœur Samba, and my dad made like a replica of the club in the basement of the house
Nice.
back there in Congo. So my mom had a collection of 8,000 vinyls in there. So every time I would go to Congo, or every time she would come to Paris, she would bring like 100 vinyls. So I would take those vinyls, I would start sampling little parts that I needed to get kicks, drums, hi-hats, and at the same time I would program my sounds in my uh in my synthesizer. But I really needed a real sampler to start. So when I got I think 17 or 18, uh my dad played my dates at the casino, and apparently he won a lot of money. So it was like, so he bought me a nice Cartier watch, and I was like disappointed. And he was like, "Oh, like
Why?
I wish I could find our watch today. I don't know where I put it, but now I realize this thing cost a lot of money. But at that time, I really didn't care. I mean, I was never about material stuff. For me, it was always about my home studio. I would we would spend the week in Paris during school, and then the
Mhm.
weekend in Waterloo in Belgium. And I would take the train. It was before the Thalys train. So the Thalys train, for those who are not Europeans, is the train that goes between Paris up to Germany, and
Mhm.
and this is the one you take when you want to go between Paris and Brussels. But before this train, it was the TEE, Transport Européen something, and it was like, or Transport Europe Express, something like that. And we would take that. It would take you 3 hours to arrive in Brussels, and I would did it every weekend. I would be there with my big synthesizer and go
Mhm.
back and forth and start really going into the hip hop movement, and at the same time really exploring uh, sound creation, and always at the service of that one song that I never released. It was that one beat that I was always doing. And when he saw that I was a little disappointed, he was like, "What do you want?" And I said, "Oh, listen, it's called the S950 from Akai." He was like, "How much does it cost?" So at that time, it was like the equivalent of probably 1,000 euros or something like that, or maybe more. And he was like, "No problem." So we went to a store in Paris called Piano Daudet, and that's when I got the sampler, and my sound changed. All of a sudden, I could sample tracks from and you know when you are a beat maker, you can hear stuff that people don't hear in music,
Mhm.
and and when you are so nowadays it's easy. You have you have websites where you can download high quality samples, so people are lazy. But back in my days, when you would listen to a song, when you would hear a snare or a kick by itself, you would be like, oh, you would know that at 00.01.33 there's a that you have to sample. So soon as I had the samples, I created a whole library of samples that I still use today, because the sound of 12 beats or 8 beat samples are don't have the same quality as the recordings of today that are very clean, and people
Mhm.
actually use plugins to dirty their samples. So me, I created my whole collection of samples using the S950. So it had specific digital to analog converters that really had that gritty sound, very hip hop sound, and that's how I really started getting into the music production. Then I got Cubase 2.5, I think, on the Atari ST. That's a long time ago. I also started probably before Atari. I started making music on Soundtracker on Amiga. Then I started. No, that's old computers. That's when a track was the size of your whole sample end song was one floppy disk of 500 kilobytes. So you had maybe 8 seconds of sample. So you really had to be creative in what you use, the time exactly that you sample. But that's really uh, when you don't have that much, when you have limited power and real estate. That's when you get creative, and that's when I started doing a lot of hip hop beats and also house music beats for French rappers. But it was at the same time that rap started in France, and I really just wanted to be a beat maker at that time. I don't know if you want me to continue or because I can.
Yeah. That was so interesting. Nice. So, okay, where did you get the idea to bring the Afro African American side back into Afro Caribbean music, like in one of your first classic where you sample Kassav?
So back in '96, to me, I mean, well, it came naturally because I believe that at that time everybody was sampling James Brown and Otis Redding and
Mhm.
the classic of soul music of or 70s 60s R&B music to create hip hop music. And I grew up listening to Kassav, to Cesare Evora, to Kofi Olomide, to Zaiko Langalanga, to Sanfant Thomas, to music. I grew up my first 7 years on in Kinshasa, then in Ivory Coast, and then in France. So
Okay.
being culturally
Mixed.
multicultural,
Mhm.
mixed, I I was always returning on every summer before the war started. I was always returning to Congo to see my parents, and at a point, um, yeah, when I was there, that was the it was no. I mean, everybody was listening to Bobby Brown and Guy and Key Sweat and when we were 15 and doing the barbecues in Kinshasa. But and Public Enemy, Beastie Boys, Naughty by Nature. But at home, when you're in the terrace with your parents, it was Celia Cruz, it was Omadiana, Kassav, Oulé, uh, Zouk la c'est le médicament Nouni. It was Zouk music and Cuban music, Congolese rumba and Cuban rumba, etc., etc. So to me, I was like, if the Americans are sampling their heroes,
Mhm.
I don't have no reason to sample
Mine. Mm-hmm.
their heroes. I'd rather sample my heroes. So to me, it was completely normal to sample Kassav, and by the time I met Jean-Michel Rotin in '96,
Mm-hmm.
we ended up going on tour after a year. So I'm in the West Indies with him and all his crew, and we are touring between Martinique, Guadeloupe, and Guyane. And I'm listening to Zouk like every day, and at the same time, I think that's the time when Wyclef releases Carnival. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
97, something like that. We were on tour at that time. And to us, it was a revelation. It was like, yeah, listen, they are sampling their own music because they are proud of their music.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we are doing hip hop, R&B, and etc. But I mean, I much respect to Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder and Otis Redding and all the American music, but those are not my heroes. My heroes are the ones from the continent, from and I mean, for me, the whole diaspora is part. It's all the whole brotherhood, but still, if we get a little territorial, especially when I was younger, to me, what I grew up listening to was more uh, a mix of Congolese music, African music in the broader sense, Zouk, R&B, and European music. So
Mm-hmm.
it completely made sense for me to sample Kassav and do a hip hop track. And what people don't understand is that Bounce Baby is not a Zouk track. It's a rap song.
Yeah, I
It's a hip
know.
hop track. The scat, cat, scat, and the bass is like a big sub bass, and then and but in the West Indies, it got
Mm-hmm.
labeled Zouk, and it became number one there. So then I got labeled a Zouk artist, when in reality I was really just doing hip hop with Zouk samples. And but listen, in the beginning I was like, no, that's not. But 100,000 CDs sold later, I was like, well, call it how
Okay.
you salute.
Nice. So, okay, that's so nice. So, I'm curious, what though a
Mhm.
plugins do you actually use? And what are your favorites?
So I used to buy every single plugin, and then I realized that it's a waste of time to try to have everything, because
Mm-hmm.
you end up not really using everything. Um, but I come from analog. I come
Okay.
from having your little mixer at home, plugging your S950 for the rhythms, plugging your TR rack for the percussions. And as since I had a Roland JV 2080, and I would also use the Korg Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so back in the days, that's really how I would make music, and I would create my own sound or transform sounds that were in there. So I really had to go digital, in contrary to a lot of people who usually are yeah, usually people are, especially in this generation, is just a bunch of plugins and thousands of sounds, etc. Me, I really started completely differently. So uh now, in terms of plugin, after trying a lot of things, I think I use to get those sounds from those analog sounds from old synths. I use the Arturia Moog collection. That's for my bass, the bass line, because it really gets near the basses that I used to use. I use a lot the virtual version, because now it exists, of the JV 2080.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's
It's roll
something.
on, right? Hold on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Japanese corporation. Same thing for the Trinity. I also use the Trinity, the virtual version. I use also Nexus. I think I
Mm-hmm.
have Nexus in every single bank that exists. But I mean, I end up always using more or less the sounds that I have. But if let's say I want to do a reggaeton track, sometimes I can just go to the reggaeton thing. And but in reality, yeah, once you create your own sound,
Yeah.
you stick to certain thing. But it's always good to have enough in case. So I use I started using Nexus back when it was like 8 CD-ROMs. So that's like long time. I've been using Nexus for a long time. I think Nexus 1.
Wow.
Now I have Nexus 4.5, but like I really started back in the days. Um, I also use a lot of EDM stuff. You can hear in my music. I use a lot of EDM sounds, but then I pervert them into something else. So sometimes I just reprogram them a little bit to sound the way I want. Um, I use a few plugins from Logic, which is the
Mm-hmm.
DAW I use. I use some plugin that are in there. I use battery. I used to use battery a lot. I think I still use battery from Native Instrument for my rhythms, but I'm starting slowly to replace it with drum designer from Logic, even if I still prefer battery. But I created a lot of drum kits in battery that I'm trying to now turn them into uh, Logic. But I mean, I still don't. I still prefer batteries. Is better design, but I see that they kind of stopped updating the program. So in case they it stops working one day,
Mm-hmm.
already starting to move all my old 950 Akai samples are following me and being recreated in every time I use a new program. I take Sundays to do drum programming, to do drum kit creations, to do sound design in every synth that I have. I also use so when I started doing on my piano, I discovered a few things that they use. So I forgot the name, but
For the log
the,
drum, right?
for the log drum, I use the ES2 from
Mm-hmm.
Logic, but I also have a log drum plugin uh, that I bought it probably in some loop place. Um, and I also use Purity. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Purity. But it's only when I want to do I'm a piano or Afro house. Most of the time, I'm more gonna be between a lot of also sample based stuff, pro instruments from Logic, plus electric pianos. I've been looking for something that sounds like the JV for a long time, uh, and I've been moving from, but I never found something that really sound the way I want. But I have a few plugins. Listen, I could not tell you like all the plugins I use because I have a lot of them. I don't use
Nice.
a lot, but I have enough for everything that I need.
Okay. Did you try Spitfire? Maybe Spitfire Labs. They
No, I
make
didn't.
really great piano and electric
Okay.
piano, really analog sound.
I,
Um,
I've been
I will
using
send you. Mhm.
the one from Spectrasonic.
Okay.
I used what are their two plugins? They have two of them. They have the one with the keyboards. I think it's let me see, Spectrasonic Escape and Omnisphere 2.
Ah, yeah, Escape. Yeah.
So yeah, Keyscape have amazing pianos, so I've been using
Mhm.
that these days. I also have something called from Gospel. That's a Gospel electric piano. It's not bad, but I mean, I created a sound in the JV using the 70s, 60s sound cards, and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to recreate that even with the
This
version
song.
of the JV. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
um, it had a distinct sound that you can recognize in my early production. So I have a lot of, I probably have like, because once I create a sound that I like, I save it as a preset inside Logic, and it saves everything with the name of the instrument. So me, I just call them EP 2012, 2000, so I have until 2023, and I have a lot of them, but from different plugins, but none of them sound exactly like I want.
I'm glad you use you say you use Logic Pro because I use it and a lot of legends use it like Timberland, Pharrell, a lot of people. But I know a lot of people love FL Studio, but for me,
Yeah.
Logic Pro is the best. And as you said, there are a lot of intern plugins that are really
Mm.
excellent. I think it's really
Yeah.
underrated. Like, by example, Alchemy, I don't know what to
Yeah.
say.
Alchemy. Yeah.
Yes, that's so great. And
It is. I started using Logic at Logic 7 or 8. I don't remember.
mhm,
So my parcours as a programmer was Cubase 2, 3,
mhm,
4. Then I went to Nuendo. Then I moved to Digital Performer.
okay,
That's when I moved on the Mac. Then I moved to Pro Tools. I programmed on Pro Tools, and I was doing the vocals there because that's what we
mhm,
used in the studio. And then when I moved to recording at home, that's when I really got into Logic, and I really
okay.
moved everything into Logic. And it's I believe that when I tell people, when they ask me what to use, I always tell them use what you like, because they all do the same thing. It's really a preference in terms of
Yes,
preference, how you're going to program, and they all copy each other at a point. Everybody's doing the same thing. Uh, it's just that when I go out of Logic and I try to use other programs, it actually they all sound complicated for me compared to compared to the
me too.
simplicity of Logic. Like, there's some stuff where I'm like, guys, well, listen, there's some stuff that I learned on Logic that I've been trying to do for ever. And I've been saying to myself, how come they don't have that? Come on, man. I used to do that on Pro Tools. And then 5 days ago, I was editing a track. And then I'm like, how come I cannot do this on Logic? And then I was like, oh, YouTube. So I go to YouTube
Mhm.
and I look at how can I consolidate a track and make it start from zero to whatever and just full audio. And then somebody says on YouTube, oh, that's how you do it. And I was like, oh my God, all these
No.
years. So Logic actually can do everything, but
Powerful, yeah.
sometimes you don't really know that all you have to do is just use that tool, because sometimes on other programs, just you go to the menu and you just click something, and on Logic sometimes you have to know the right tool to do it. But
Mhm.
actually, it's an amazing program that, like, I recorded I think all my production and all my albums since I would say 2006. Everything has been
Really?
done on Logic
Wow.
Pro. Yeah, yeah, everything has been recorded and mixed and mastered sometime inside of Logic. Yeah. So I
Okay.
could say
Big up Logic Pro. Maybe someone here in Apple, big up.
well,
Yes. I have a question.
call me.
So, hmm? They call
Uh,
me. Yes, call. So, of course, you make a big hit with Les Déesses.
yes,
Yes. And
I use on Logic.
how did you come with the idea of producing Les Déesses? With that was so great.
On a changé, and I did the whole album. I produced like I think 80% of the album. Actually, my good friends and Blaise and
Mhm.
Kojo from Nouvelle Donne, they really wanted to get out of producing hip hop and producing a girl group. In the beginning,
Mhm.
I think we did a track for a group, and the girls were um, models in the music video, and one of them was singing. That's how they decided they want to do a girl group. And when they said they want to do a girl group, that's when they call me and they say, "Okay, we want to do a girl group, and we want you to executive produce and produce the whole album." And I was like, "Okay, what do you want to do exactly?" And they, in the beginning, they wanted to do a Coupé Décalé girls band. That was the the what they decided to do in the beginning. So we started. The first track was Tous les mêmes, which
Mhm.
was in the same style of what I did for Tia or On dit quoi. And after doing that song, they changed the direction. Now they wanted to do a lot of old Zouk songs, but new versions. So covers of Tu me manques, uh,
Mm.
and Leo Love and tracks like that. So in the beginning, that's the direction they wanted to go. And as we were working on it, and I told them, listen, I believe we have to do Destiny's Child. So Lila
Mm.
had Beyonce, and the other two are the other girls, and we have to focus on one singer. Uh, and she was the one who was the better singing at they were like between 17 and 18 when we started. And I said, listen, she's the one that has to sing. Uh, and I remember one day I had studio at 2 p.m. and I went partying all night. I was out all night, came back home 7 a.m. tired. I sleep until like 1 p.m. Then I get a call from Blaise, the other owner of the label, and
Mhm.
he's like,
Mhm.
"Yo, we're waiting for you in the studio. Are you ready? When are you coming?" I was like, "Oh Lord, what time is it?" I was like, "Oh, it is one." Oh, shit. I go to my shower, take a quick shower, like rapid, get out the shower. I start preparing everything, and then I'm like, "Oh, I don't have a beat for these girls. I don't have nothing to make them sing on." So I just turn on Logic, and I was like, 15 minutes.
Mm.
I finish the beat, and I tell them, "Hey, I'm sending a beat by email. You start working on it." And they were with Camnous, who's a
Mhm.
French rapper,
Yes,
and
I know. Old
okay,
Henry, Camnose. Yes.
exactly. So same label. So they were like, "Oh, okay, Camnous gonna write something by the time you come." I say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, perfect." And and they say, "Yeah, but we're doing two songs today." I say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." So now I'm like, "Okay, you guys start working on this one." And I'm creating. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I was still half naked on my chair, working on
Tired.
the second beat. So I did the first one on a changé in 15 minutes straight.
Crazy.
Send them the beat as they're working on it, and I'm saying, "Oh, I'm gonna be a little late. I have something to do, whatever." And I'm now create Danse avec moi, which is the second single that also was. And when I arrived in the studio, so yeah, they finished recording the whole thing, and after that, I did Danse avec moi, which is the one I wrote also. And same thing, I did the beat probably in 20 minutes, and then I wrote it in as she was singing. I was just telling her,
Nice.
okay, j'ai attendu ce moment presque toute ma vie. Okay, sing this. J'ai attendu ce moment, and she was like, okay. So there's no the cooking recipe is just the way we do beats. Just wake up, you inspire, you do a beat, you throw it, and then the people make it a hit. There's no So it's just on a changé. Actually, people call it a Zouk track, but it's actually a candy Zouk, which is my source of Zouk, which is inspired from Kizomba and Cap Verdean Zouk,
Mm-hmm.
uh, with hip hop samples because I'm still using my old S950 samples. So that's how why it sounds like this. And yeah, listen, that beat was, I mean,
That
almost
was
20 minutes on
futuristic. That was
YouTube.
really futuristic because, as
Yeah,
you said, the kick and the snare was really hip hop, my
yeah.
really American hip hop actually.
Mhm.
And yes, the chords really like dreamy, like no, that was.
And the rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
actually, the rhythm is more reggaeton, and not even like because the it's like it's actually, I mean, it's actually more old 80s Zouk, but with a hip hop flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And the synthesizer work is more is between Cap Verdean music and Pet Shop Boys Europop. And but because it's too complicated, people, if you play it in Haiti, they will call it Kompa. If you played it in the West Indies, they will say Zouk. And if you played in Portugal, they would say, oh, Kizomba.
Kizomba.
That's funny. To me, it's funny. It's just like, because for me, I'm like, it's none of all that. And actually, those beats are so futuristic that right now on TikTok, On a Changé is exploding. And my song, Something Going On, is also
Not only this one, you know the other one, something going on.
something going on. We about to reach 10 billion views on TikTok, which
Yeah,
is,
congrats, congrats.
and I think 20 million stream almost. So that's crazy. Yeah, that's
I didn't know that was you. I was thinking people copy your style.
no, no, it was me. It
And
was
I
me. It
said,
was,
after that, I said, that's really you. Yes, yes, with the scent, because as you said, you always use the sound like the scent like EDM, but your way of use it, EDM, is really your sound.
I
So,
wouldn't say
mhm,
EDM.
not
I would
EDM, EDM, man.
I would say Europop because those
Okay.
sounds are the sound from the 80s. Like if you listen to a lot of Durand,
Yes.
Bronx Beat, like the song that I grew up in, that's that sound of those times. Like people were, I would even say house music maybe more than EDM. Like really the first house music when it was made by black people in Chicago. Those are
Mm-hmm.
the sounds that I really use that you can recognize the polysynths from the JV. The bass lines are very uh, it's the 101 bass from the JV. Is it's something that I've when I didn't have a JV anymore, I started recreating it in every sample, every program that I had. I would recreate that sound by myself.
Nice. So the interview is almost finished.
Too long.
So, what are your upcoming projects?
All right. Terms of project, I released my album number 10 called Bantu Royalty. So it's an album of 50 songs.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to follow up with my album number 9, African Prince, that had 40 songs. And my ongoing project was actually to take every song in my album and have beat makers do remixes. So I'm
Okay.
releasing every 2 weeks remixes of the 50 songs until we have 500 remixes. And in between, I'm also releasing new songs every Friday. So I'm really productive. I just
Wow.
released a track last Friday called Casanova that probably already have 600 streams, 6,000 streams. So it's and I'm also doing a lot of remixes from Something Going On because it is blowing. So I'm creating new versions of the songs
Absolutely.
because once you have a hit on TikTok, people call you and they say, "Oh, can we license the song?" And they make money off of you.
Mm,
And me, I'm like, "Nah, I'm gonna do it myself because I'm an exec too, so I know the game. So I'm being actually enjoying the success of Something Going On, and it also permits me to really do what I want in terms of production because
nice.
I make so much money from an old song that I can just be free again as an artist. Because once you make a hit, you kind
Mhm.
of people are trying to force you to recreate a hit when a hits most of the time you do it by mistake. So once you have a one of those songs that, and I have a whole catalog that I own that generates way more than enough money to not have to tour, to not have to just be here in my home studio chilling. So I can really be creative and just have
You,
fun.
yeah.
That's what I'm
Hmm.
doing every Friday. One
So,
new song and change styles every Friday.
yes. Okay. Nice to know. The last word. What advice can give you to a music producer, beginner music producer?
All right, I would give a completely different advice if we were in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
But in the world of today, where thanks to all the beautiful websites like Afroplug, anybody can be a music producer. In a world where anybody can do the same thing because everybody's using the same loops, everybody's using the same synth, everybody's using going to YouTube and looking at a tutorial, and they're all building tracks using the same construction kits. The world is being standardized. My my advice to beat makers is be different. You want to do a piano? I'm a piano. Do it, but do it your way. Everybody's using a log drum and say, "Oh, this is the soul of a piano." Fuck that. Do use something else. Everybody, you want to do Afro house? Use your sound. You want to do Zouk? Use hip hop or use reggaeton samples to do Zouk. Like, try to create your sound. Not a lot of producers, when you hear the sound, you can say, "Oh, that's Kaysha." I have that because I created subgenres of everything that I touch, and I make sure that whatever I do, it sounds like me. Nowadays, everybody sound the same. If you really wanna in a sea where every beat you make is just a little raindrop in the sea, if you want to create your own island, have personality. Don't be scared to move completely against the grain. And it's okay if it doesn't work the first song. It's okay if it doesn't work after 10 songs. It's okay if after 100 songs it doesn't work. When it's going to work, people are going to be like, oh my God, there's thousands of them. Yes, be yourself. Everybody else is taken.
Nice. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot for this interview, Keisha. That
My
was
pleasure.
really inspiring, helpful, and yes, thanks for your touch for really how to say advance the culture in your own way, as you said, with your personality, with your history. You were part of really the sound actually of Zouk and variants like Kizomba and Kompa.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't have to forget, especially for everyone who buy from Afroplug. Kompa Loops is one of the king, man. So thank you very much, and thanks for
Yeah.
everyone who listening this episode. And see you soon. Bye
Blessing
bye.
everybody. Bless. Thank you for having me.